Yeah, I know so just so everybody knows, welcome Maximus Crypto to the channel. You guys, right off the bat, I would encourage you to go over to his channel. I'm gonna put the link for your channel in the description. Definitely go check that out, guys. Very, very entertaining. I go there all the time. I'm in the live stream. It's definitely a good time. Max is a good guy, does his research. Definitely check him out, guys. Awesome stuff. So we were actually just kind of chatting off camera there about, like you were saying, people are saying Jasmine scam. I wanted to touch on that quick because I actually do one-on-one video calls with my members sometimes too, and a couple of them today that wears on them because of like what you were saying. Like no matter what Jasmine's doing, like even today it's pumping, and you're getting people saying, Jasmine's a scam, right? It's and it gets to them, right? Like. So 100%, man, 100%. So Max, yeah, why don't you just kind of tell us a quick little bit about yourself for my subscribers that don't know you, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your platform, Rob. There's also another crypto future, and a while back I had to make sure I was connected to the right one. There's also Teddy Ganja, my crypto future. So I think it's a pretty cool name you got here. Um, of course, very appreciated that you cover, Jasmine. You cover some other things that I also cover in our community as well. So just a little background about myself. You know, in the past, as a former school teacher. My dad, of course, passed away last month, and I had to get to the point where I had to be at home to, take care of my dad and so on. So I had to do some remote work and whatnot. But teaching basically has always been in my blood, DNA, if you want to call it that. So I love to educate. I basically came into crypto as far as altcoins, if you want to be technical, Bitcoin in 2016, but never really counted that, but altcoins in January 2021, got into Dogecoin. That was my first entry point. Did very, very well with that. Came in at, a penny and basically turned $300 into like, a little over 22K. And then from there, Shiba Inu, 8K into 88K and CRO, Chronos. That was my third top performer, $1,700 investment, 10K basically. And my main thing after that was like, wow, as the saying goes, once you get bit by the crypto bug, you're never going to shut up about this stuff. People could say it's all scam, but at the end of the day, it's like you got to realize it's the market cycles. It's these what they call boom cycles and so on. And I feel personally, there's enough evidence, and we share this, of course, on our live show, that we're entering or have already entered actually into the fourth boom cycle. And for me personally, I think there's going to be some big things that's going to happen at the end of this particular year. But for me, what excites me the most is the end of 2025, especially with the ISOs. I know we're talking about Jasmy, and I have some info I want to, gather with you. And by the way, formal invite to come on our show sometime with,
Thank you.
the research. Yeah, we'll have to get you on a live stream and stuff like that. But um, I just don't think, for the most part, people realize the bigger picture when it comes to, for instance, Jasmine. Obviously, Jasmine is the topic that we're mentioning. I'm not gonna get into all the nitty gritty because I mean I understand that this is not like a real deep analysis, but obviously the given IoT stands out for Jasmine, and what really like separates Jasmine, I guess you could say, from that. Bottom line is supply and demand. People look at this who have research understand the bigger picture. People who haven't, they just look at the old chart. That's where we have the joke of, Jasmine scam. It's just like, come on, give me some research to back up your claims. Because if I'm gonna provide research, I expect that people will have, some kind of, argument to prove their point. As the saying goes, don't just be the loudest person in the room. Share your knowledge of why you feel that way. So a few key points I want to get into, and I want to kick it back to you, but it basically is like this. I talk a lot about like other coins like Quant, right? RWA, real world assets and whatnot. And the way I look at with Quant is like they are, tokenizing so many different things. You see what's going on with the Bank of International Settlements. You see what's going on with You know, for instance, Bank of England, they have all these API things going on, like API everything. But when it comes to Jasmy, I'm like, you know what? They're also doing tokenization as well. And so what I mean by that is, you know, their data can definitely be represented as tokens. They can be traded, used to access services, applications, and so on. But the bottom line is what we're entering into. A lot of people are excited about going to this layer two, obviously. You know, an AI blockchain. Like some people are like, it sounds cool, but what do we really, really have in regards to that? And the bottom line is this: Jasmine's approach to address some of these things and how we take it to the next level. And so I don't know what you gathered on your own in regards to this. I've been trying to watch some of your videos, but I really think this next step that we're coming here soon is going to be a big deal. And of course, I want to pick your brain a little bit about this as well. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but obviously everybody wants to know where we're going with this. The layer two, obviously optimism as far as a Web3 cloud solution. That's another thing I love about Jasmine. You know, you have that utility layer, if you will. I did the whole thing with Filecoin, so um, yeah, I don't want to do all the talking. I want to hear what you got to say about some of this stuff. I'm really interested and excited about that.
Well, there's a couple things that that I really focus on for myself, and like you were just saying, we're leading up into March, right? And like everybody wants to know where are we going? The L2 Jasmine chain, right? The PDL, the lockup, all this kind of stuff, all happening at once. And a big concern, well, not really a concern for me, but more of a back of my mind thought on it is, I really hope that they don't kick the can down the road, right? Now, there's two trains of thought on this for me personally, because one, it's going to piss everybody off if they do, right? Like we've been all waiting for this for March. Big things. What are we going to expect here with the PDL, with the Jasmine chain, with this launch? Because right now, a lot hinges on this, especially when it comes to stuff like the innovation zone, right? My theory on this is that they had said that they were going to reassess Jasmy Binance, that is, for the innovation zone on in April, right? Um, with the PDL and the Jasmy chain supposed to be launching in March, right? By the end of March. I think that it's crucial that they get it out to, to everybody, to or out to uh, I can't think of the word.
Like a broader base.
Yeah, out to the public, like usable, right? Get your product launched and all that stuff. Because for me, that's why Jasmy's in the innovation zone in the first place, right? This all kind of unlocks with that, I think, with getting their product out on time. Because everything is attached to it. The KPI goals that they say that they're going to go for, right? The innovation zone, the use case. Because right now, I try to explain to people, Jasmine doesn't really have a use case at this point, and that's what people miss. They say we're in the innovation zone for no reason, right? Well, no, we don't have a product out to market. Is like what, and people don't really kind of understand that. So these are the kind of areas that I generally tend to focus on, is like the upcoming, March, kicking the can down the road. Are we going to? Are we not going to? Because people have a hard time getting answers out of the company, right? And that's something that you and I talked about, how I talk with Jesse a lot. We talk about that a lot, about how it's really hard to get answers out of the company. They're very uh hold their cards close to their chest, so to speak, right? Um, so like, I don't know, like what are your thoughts on that? Like on all of that, on March coming up, on the PDL coming out on time. Is that a concern for you? Um, the PDL, is it going to function properly? Because that's another concern too. People say they don't want them to kick the can down the road, but at the same time, more like Charles Hoskinson and Cardano, I would much rather have them have a working product out than launch the PDL on schedule and it have all kinds of bugs, and then it's a laughing stock, right? And that could damage the product irreparably, in my opinion. So it's kind of like, what's the lesser of two evils here?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, and it's a legitimate complaint. And of course, you know, if they kick the can down the road, that gives Fudders all the more fuel to, fuel whatever debate that is. I mean, if it's a real legitimate debate, but let's just be honest about this. The way I look at it is, and I get where you're coming from as far as the Cardano thing, because trust me, I have been invested into Cardano for many years now, and it gets kind of tiresome. But we understand, those have researched it, that it's a very, very, very long-term hold for a lot of people. It's got the reputation of being boring, but it's the saying goes, I would rather invest in quality over just something that's like a pump and dump and so on. And of course, whether people like Hoskinson or not, I think they realize that. For me, when it comes to Jasmine, just talk about it for a moment, it's the research. And I always use this expression on our live show, and that is, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. And what I mean by that is, look into the nitty gritty, right? You may complain all you want when it comes to, we're not getting much of the marketing or getting anything from the actual management team, and that's a legitimate complaint. I can understand it, because I too am personally invested into Jasmine. But when I look at some things that have come out on time, as far as what's in the background, like the nitty gritty, like the patents and so on, say what you want, but Kazumasa Sato has been killing it when it comes to that. Tadashi Morita, he's literally admired, well-renowned, I guess you could say scientist, if you will, when it comes to, you know, um, like for instance, ESG and some of these other things, like on the power grids, and a lot of his unique patents. Over here in the United States, a lot of people just, they don't know about this stuff, and then they look at like, big deal. But in Japan, it's a really, really huge deal. Southeast Asia is really, really huge deal. So when you look at it from the other point of view and realize, yeah, we don't have, maybe this coming out on time, like like how we would like it to be. Then you see all these other things, and it makes you wonder. It's like, all right, there's something going on here. And for me, I come to the conclusion every single time that it has to be some kind of thing with NDAs, and maybe it's more strict in Japan. That part I don't know. But one thing I do know is that regulations are way more strict over there. As we know, Jasmine is referred to as the Bitcoin of Japan. I'm not going to talk people's ears off about that, because I know some people get tired of hearing that. But one thing I want to get back to basically is, and I'm not going to make this too big of an outline. I'll probably do this on my own show, because that's something I do, is, deep dives. But, one thing I want to point out to some of your listeners and viewers, because let's face it, some of us just drive down the street, listen to a show. I do it all the time. But one thing I want to, bring to people's attention, um, is more to it than just this whole thing of tokenization. So this fuel of AI development, creating something that's secure, transparent, to access the actual data and to accelerate, for instance, development, adoption of AI applications, various fields. For us to get this layer two solution is how Jasmine is going to shine. And of course, their approach to all this does lie in the potential of how do we take data ownership back. Jasmine, in my opinion, is a industry disruptor to industries that really need to be disrupted. Your Googles, your Amazons, your Facebooks, your Apples, right? GAFA. Points that a lot of people just need to consider is the whole concept of, for instance, ethical implications. Let's face it, over here in the United States, a lot of people just throw out ethical implications of data ownership right out the window, really dismiss it. But Japan, they're combining data ownership with AI development. They do take all these considerations very seriously. And again, it comes back to the whole thing of IoT and how platforms like Jasmine evolve. And just to give you a little bit of a tip of the iceberg on this, because I understand it's a very, very deep thing. I'm going to try to get into it maybe later today, because I'm actually probably going to do a live show. But it's this, all right? We know that even with some of the recent reports, you have this concept of public data marketplace, and basically it's easier than ever for buyers to basically find that data and purchase it for a price. My thing is this: I recognize that there's going to be a huge impact coming up here soon. In the past, I covered it myself. I've taken a lot of criticism about this, but like Elon Musk going to Japan, he definitely has a problem when it comes to addressing, by the way, the second biggest market he has. And what I'm trying to state is Twitter itself, and I don't have this on the screen, but anybody could look this up. You have to keep in mind that number of Twitter users by country, and even now in 2024, Japan ranks the second largest market for, X, right? Formerly known as Twitter. There is data privacy issues that conflict with the business model of what X has. It's a problem Elon Musk simply has. So if we look at the concept of supply and demand, then you also draw yourself to a conclusion that, you know, there's this thing of like web scraping and, user generated content and, text, visuals, audio content, all that's data scraping, web scraping tools, harness all this data, and it goes to data marketplaces, and it even does it at scale. So for instance, it is estimated, and I'll show this later on my own show, right? Because again, I don't want to get too deep. It is estimated, listen to this, Rob, that 500,000 tweets per minute are shared, and 3.6 million Google searches are processed. 42 million WhatsApp messages are shared. That's a lot of user data that's shared, right? It's insane. Yeah, it's mind-boggling. Just real quick before I kick it back to you, I want you to hear this out. I want everybody to hear this out. So basically speaking, you have web scraping tools that already are at our disposal that crawl around, collect vast amounts of data in seconds, and basically it has contributed to what's referred to as a big data boom. But what about the whole thing of IoT? Now, if you think about this in itself, like the Tesla vehicles, every single day Tesla is constantly gathering vast amounts of data. If we talk about GAFA every day, in reality, we should call it, GAFAT, because the T in Tesla, right? So IoT and web scraping are part of what has caused over 2.5, and look, you can look this up. This is on a site called Data Raid. I know it sounds funny, dataraid.ai. And it's a 2024 report. And in that report, it mentions specifically, listen to this for a second, that how IoT and web scraping are part of what caused over 2.5, and I'll repeat it again, quintillion bytes of data that will be created globally every day. And that happened in 2017, and it's only going to increase. Yes, it's only going to increase with the total value of data created worldwide to expect, listen to this, 149 zettabytes by 2045. Now, everybody wants, when moon 2025, or I don't want to wait to 2030, but in reality, 149 zettabytes. Listen to this just real quick. I know I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I want you to hear this. I want everybody to hear this. Listen to this for as far as a data of measurement, right? A zettabyte for people that are the non-nerds, it's okay. A zettabyte is a digital unit of measurement. 1 zettabyte is equal to 1 sextillion bytes. I know it sounds sexy in itself, right? Which is basically 10 to the 21st. So that's basically taking a 1 and adding 21 zeros next to it. And 1 zettabyte, for those that do know all this stuff, is equal to a trillion gigabytes. So when people say that Jasmine is the Bitcoin of Japan, now I think we should take it to the next level. And this is what excited me to want to do my live show today, because before I came with you, I discovered some of this stuff. Because when you hear talks of like Michael Saylor saying, you know what, we need to be able to, it's these block sizes increasing. It's like, I don't know, not with BTC, but I've been so excited about BSV lately. And I know not BSV is part of this discussion, but Jasmine being the Bitcoin in Japan, maybe now we should think about it from the bigger picture. When you hear the people of Japan, and especially the Jasmine management team, saying KPI target of $17, right, by 2026, a lot of people are like, no, that's bogus. But when I look more into this, about literally a zettabyte is equal to a trillion gigabytes, and Jasmine can get a piece of that pie. How? With what we mentioned in regards to for instance, Web3 cloud storage and finance democracy for one, right? Like you're doing all these transactions with cross-border payments, and people are not taking Jasmine serious in that regard. They're still not. That data has to securely be sourced somewhere. And then on top of that, as we know, data democracy with IoT. So you're hitting like three big, huge areas that when you look at the overall picture of things, and I know I sound like I'm hyped up, but I am because I read that earlier. When you look at the greater picture of things, right, you will come to the conclusion, holy cow, this is huge because, again, back to the original Bitcoin white paper, real, true, original Bitcoin is designed to scale. And it's designed to scale to not just billions, but trillions in block size, right? I mean, it's just or transactions per second, excuse me, and going from like even what we have now, I think Terra node like 4 GB block sizes. It's just unbelievable. But this whole thing of a zettabyte, and even if Jasmine can just reach what, like even 1% of that, what kind of value would we have in the future? So people complain about the product not being ready. My thing is this: I'd rather have them get it right than have them get it wrong.
100%, I agree. And hey, absolutely, brother. Dominate the conversation all you want. Like, I like to, like I told you before, I like to have different voices in the room for my subscribers and stuff like that, right? Because if it's just me all the time, then it's just, you know, it's an echo chamber and it's not, you know. But yeah, you've got me on the edge of my seat over here, bro, with with the research you're finding out today. And quick plug, by the way, guys, make sure you're there. What time are you going to do your stream at?
Well, normally I do a live stream Monday through Thursday. And then I always tell people if I come out with something juicy on Saturday or new info, they just can't wait, I'll come out with it. But yeah, I gathered some more info that I cannot, wait to share with everybody. So it'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. The shows are called DYOR with Max. It's over on my platform of Maximus Crypto. It's all one word.
The link will be in the description, guys. I'm going to be in the chat for that live stream, so make sure you guys are there too. Just quick plug there because I'll be hanging out. So you got me on the edge of my seat with this, buddy, and I want to know more, so I'm going to be there for sure. But back to the IoT aspect of it, and what you were saying, if they can just get a fraction of it, because I've been saying that to my subscribers for quite a while now about everyone's asking me about the KPIs and all these goals, and I said, can they reach it? And I said, listen, if they just get a fraction, just a percentage of where they want to be, you know, it's a home run. And like you were saying, when people hear $17.80, whatever, it's just mindless, no research, and then they just say, well, market cap is, this, and that would be impossible, right? And they just don't do these deep dives that you're talking about, and that's what people need to know, right? Because it's not
Right.
easy. It's not easy for people to kind of do that kind of research. A lot of people that are invested in this stuff, which I highly, don't advise, but they just buy into it for because they heard it, and they don't know any of this stuff. So and I do a lot of research on it, and you've got me on the edge of my seat. So it's very important that these topics do get out to my followers as well as your own, right? Because you got me jacked up, brother. But back to the IoT. Sorry, I tell
Oh, it's
my
okay.
yeah, I tell my people all the time, like we're in the infancy of IoT as well, in my opinion. Like I think next bull run 2029, 2030-ish, I think we'll be looking more at IoT coming closer to the center stage, right? And I think that that's one of the biggest problems with IoT right now in FUDDers is that because it's so new, I think that people haven't really done much research into it, so they just it's nothing, right? But it's very quickly going to sneak up on them, very similar to how AI did, I think, right? People don't realize how everything is going to be IoT. I joke all the time. I say, guys, your freaking toothbrush is going to be connected to the internet at some point in time, right? Like everything, telling you how many bristles or how many strokes you got to do left on you. And
Rob,
it's
they're already a part of IoT and they don't really realize it. That's the bottom line. And if you think about it, really, you got to look at it from the perspective of centralized marketplaces. And what I mean by that is literally like when we were all first exposed to Google, some people say, well, no. But the answer really is yes, is especially when we went from I guess you could say like the concept of just like flip phones back in the days, like Nokia and so on. And we went to the next stage of our smartphones because the smartphones just naturally freely hand over all that data. I mean, think about it. Like I always use this example all the time. You know, hey, I need to get a new barbecue grill, and I talk with my friend. Oh, I'm thinking about getting like a Weber barbecue grill. It's not going to break the bank, and it'll get the job done. Boom. You know, 3 hours later, all this stuff right in my face about Weber barbecue grills. Why is that? Because we freely give away our data without even thinking of it. We, as we speak, this is the internet a thing, whether people want to agree with that or not. This is internet a thing. So the point is this. Originally, when everybody got on Google, right? You know, I remember jumping from Yahoo to Google or Ask Cheese back in the day to Google, right? The point is we didn't believe in it then. I should say we, but a lot of us, right? Mainstream, I don't know what they're doing with it. It might be worth something. You better believe it's worth something because the big players, right? Your Googles, your, even Amazon. I remember back in the day when Amazon was just a used online bookstore. Look how that turned out, right? Like you have Prime and you could watch TV shows and movies and all sorts of stuff. I mean, we're talking about being innovative, right? Same could be applied to Facebook, obviously now Meta. The point is, just because people don't see it in its current form, understand that these guys have more than a business plan already made to, get us to the next level, which is the future of this. There is a legitimate problem that exists in Japan, and that is basically data privacy. I think Elon Musk recognizes it, and it's a huge, huge problem that needs to be solved. He can't, talked about earlier in the show, kicking that can down the road, right? He realizes that. Japan, second biggest market for X, right? Formerly known as Twitter. I always got to remind people that, right? Because they're like, X, what are you talking about? So that's a problem. Well, I would imagine even if it was ranked 20th, at some point he would recognize, all right, we need to address this. So, yes, United States, the biggest market for them, many different European countries, I imagine also, but come on, we're talking about a country that ranks what, third or fourth in GDP, gross domestic product, right? Japan. So supply and demand, he has to tackle that issue. It's not a point of like, oh, we'll just wait till 2025. So again, the industry disruptors, Jasmine helps get that job done. Now, in its current form, people say no. And again, understand the whole reason why we're scaling up to this layer two. Understand why we're going to this Web3 cloud solution. Like, so the layer two, for instance, optimism. Could there be better ones out there? Yeah, I've shared that on my live show and done many videos about that. You got to keep in mind the budget of what Jasmine has. I've gotten criticism. I thought Jasmine's going to choose quant. And they say they're going to choose quant. I'm letting people know that with ISO TC 307, those working groups and those connections to Japan, that's a dream, not a pipe dream, but that's a realistic possibility for the future. And for some other people are like, man, Max, and I've gotten the heat about this. You're just creating clickbait. You don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, listen to this for a second. The head honcho, right, Mr. Kunitaki Ando. What did we learn lately in the last few months? He is already connected to an ISO standard. Okay. So with that said, he already understands ISO standards. So to me, that's your plug, that's your connect because he already gets it. So I do think in the future, when Jasmine takes off, really starts taking off, then to be able to scale to the next level, like way past what optimism could offer, and no disrespect to optimism, but we're not to that point. We should look at this whole thing. Like I always tell my audience, crypto is not a sprint. It is not a quick race. We're not a bunch of, the story goes, tortoise and hares, right? I myself am like a tortoise, right? Treat it as so. Get to that finish line. This thing is a marathon. Same goes for Jasmine. They're scaling up to the next level, taking it in steps. Optimism is the next step. In the future, far out, and way out far in the future, I don't know, maybe by 2030 and so on, especially when quant is literally connected to everything. Yeah, you have that. How do we know that? Look it up yourself. Go to, for instance, research more of ISO standards, especially ISO TC 307, the Gilbert-Verdian quant network standard, and you will see this thing, a beautiful thing called working groups. And what does it show there? It shows AI. And what does it especially show there? It shows Japan like a fat kid on cake.
100%, man. 100%. I agree. Another factor that I wanted to touch on, like we were talking about with the Jasmine team, was just that, like back to people saying, well, they don't communicate, they don't, there's no announcements, and you had touched on there, there might be NDAs and stuff like that, but at the same time, I think another big factor is that the team, we're looking at people who came from companies like Sony, right? And so they're used to what stockholders and stuff like that, right? You don't have stockholders for companies like Sony on Twitter or X constantly harassing them for, answers on this, that, and the other thing. So it's I mean, they do ask for answers, but it's usually at a board meeting or so, a shareholders meeting or something like that, right? Like once a year. And I think that a big part of it is probably that the team is probably largely overwhelmed by this whole concept of a community behind a crypto project. And I don't really think they understood and probably still don't understand what the hell is going on when it comes to that, right? Um, because generally when you're running a company like Sony, like you were talking about Ondo and stuff like that, like these guys are probably used to playing their cards close to their chest with these companies until it's necessary to you don't just spew shit out to the general public on X when you don't see Microsoft doing that or Apple doing that or and I think that's a big factor too.
It's a huge factor. I mean, I've shared this a few times on some of my videos. I even do it, chop it up as intros. I don't have it ready for you today, but anybody can look this up. I would advise everybody look at an old Steve Jobs Apple interview where Steve Jobs talks about the complaints of Japan in regards to their marketing, right? Japan has never stood out in regards to its marketing, but the products are quality products that speak for themselves, not just Sony. We know this, right? You have your Panasonics, you have some of these other ones. How about this? Here's another crazy analogy, and I've shared this recently. It's kind of funny. So it's like this: Japanese restaurants, Chinese restaurants. When's the last time, other than Panda Express? I'm not going to count that because that's a franchise, right? And that's kind of Americanized. When's the last time, all of us, you, Rob, our listeners, everybody, when's the last time you saw an advertisement for a Chinese restaurant or some great Japanese food? Probably never, right?
100%, yeah.
But you get in that mood. Hey, honey, what are you in the mood for? Oh my gosh, I could really go for some like a teriyaki bowl or something. Oh, I know this one place. Right. You know this one place because that one place is like it's the bomb, right? So with that said, are we so naive to not apply that to, for instance, like blockchain and DLT and whatnot? And some people say, well, that's not fair, Max. You can't do that. We do that, right? But who are those companies? Those are like either American based or they're in Europe and so on, right? And do they have a lot better marketing? Yes. What about the product? Eh, some of those are pump and dumps and so on. Right. So when I go back every single time and I research more about Jasmine, I come to the conclusion that this has one of the best potential risk to reward ratios. Okay. Everything has risk, and none of this is financial advice. I just provide information and research and so on. I'm a former school teacher. That's what I do. My thing is this: I don't know of anything more attractive as far as that goes, that risk to reward ratio. Am I personally invested into Jasmine? Of course I am. I don't boast about like how much I have all the time, but it's a good amount. And the way I look at it is I have other goals, right? So I reached my first milestone um, of my Jasmine goal. And I share this, of course, on my live show. So anyway, and my next is to get to another couple big milestones. That way, when we hit some of these targets, and for everybody, I think, conservatively speaking, for a lot of us, and I hate to do price predictions because at the end of the day, if it doesn't come true that particular year, people want to point fingers, and blame responsibilities like your fault, Rob, your fault, Max, everybody. Right. So I want to state this. My thing is, I do feel as though, conservatively speaking, at least a dollar, hopefully by the end of 2025. Now, some people say, what about the 2026 KPI target? Right. I think we could very well get to that. For me, it's like three big chunks. I shared this before on my show, so I'm not going to brag about that. So the levels of what that is, take profits for me at a dollar. And then the next big one is like, for instance, does it go to five? Take profits again. And then that third one, okay. So if it's like towards the end of 2026, I don't know. Some people say this doesn't match up with the 4 year cycles, and I would agree. But I also advise people look at this way. Japan's, like what we're into right now, their fourth quarter is definitely different from ours. But my main thing is how should I say this? I look at like taking your profits again, $1 for me, $5, and then $10 or higher. But that last one where I take the profits at $10 or higher, I don't know if I take it right at 10 because then it tells me, holy cow, if we're in 2026, maybe we could all agree with this. If we're in 2026 and everything has already happened, like we're ready over $5 or $10. I don't know if I want to sell that last bag at, those particular prices. And if anything, what about proper regulations worldwide? Will we be able to earn a higher yield on it? So those are all factors to consider. But I would never be that type of influencer, or I hate to call ourselves influencers, content creators, right? There's a protective, we gotta protect ourselves too, but I'll never be that type of guy that would say, don't sell this, don't sell any of this. The heck, you gotta do what's best for you and your family.
Mhm.
I've seen, and this is no bash on anybody, so I'm not gonna mention any names, but I've seen time and time again where I see, and I'm not talking about Jasmine, I'm just saying like some projects are just crap. Let's just be honest. And you'll see the influencer, content creator, what do you want to call them, say, you know, um, don't sell most of it, keep most of it, because if you're a true believer in this particular coin, you're going to hold it to this particular. That's nonsense. You need
Yes.
to understand why they're saying that, because they bring in a lot of views from you,
Yeah.
right? The viewer, and they feel as though they're going to lose a big part of their audience when people dump this stuff or sell it, whatever you want to call it. Hey, at the end of the day, I have a moral compass, if you will, just as much as anybody else. I'm not cool with that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So at some point, yes, I am going to just let people know. Guess what? Hey, I took some profits and so on. Does that mean I'm gonna stop covering it? No, I'm still gonna talk about, if I couldn't shut up back in 2021, turning 10K into 120K, then I'm not gonna shut up about what I did with Jasmine or some of these other particular altcoins. And if we take a hit on our viewership, then so be it. If anything, people will know that we're genuine. You know what
Just
I mean? Yeah.
integrity. Yeah. I agree. I always tell my members when I'm doing my sell, I always put my sell alerts out there too. Like, look, I'm taking profits on this, that, and the other thing. But I think it's going to cut us off in about 45 seconds. So I figured I'd get you to plug your live stream again in your channel. I'll put your link to your channel in the description down below for people. I'm going to be in your live stream tonight. So what time is it again? Just so that everybody.
Oh, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.
Okay. So guys, be there. I'm going to be there in the chat. I'll be active in the chat, guys. Check it out. Hopefully we can get you on again, brother. And I'll
Thank
talk
you.
to you tonight.
Sounds good. Thanks again.
Thanks for coming on, buddy.
You're welcome.